Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take our deep dive into this Texas A&M program, heading into spring practice, fall camp in the 2024 season. It's been a very busy last couple weeks for Mike Elko and the staff. Last week, we took a look at the offensive line. Dill, this week, a much more exciting conversation. This Texas A&M defensive front that was phenomenal in 2023. You take a look at some of the numbers, 3.3 yards per carry allowed, top 15 in the country. Sacking the quarterback, 11% of dropbacks. That was number 2 in the country. And I think a lot of the casual fans who might not follow Texas A&M extremely closely, just going to assume that this unit's going to take a step back. When you scroll Twitter and you see guys like Walter Nolan hit the portal, LT Overton, you go back and watch in 2023, and then you look at what they did in the portal. This is a unit that I think can take a step forward in 2024 because you got a lot of young talent that are kind of coming into their own heading into that 2024 year. I want to talk two things. One, what we saw from this unit in 2023, and then kind of preview what we're going to see from a unit that adds a lot of talent heading into the 2024 year. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a huge shout out to the Texas A&M fans. I mean, a program that's been a blast talking about the last couple of weeks is Mike Elko and the staff have been extremely busy in the transfer portal. You guys continue to show a ton of love, a ton of support to the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box. Let's start with what we saw from this unit in 2023 here.
I mean, I think what stands out the most is how tough they were against the run. And that's a big physical defensive line. Their defensive ends were physical. They have big defensive tackles, and they're still going to have big defensive tackles this year. That's where I think they shined. I think, again, in the pass rush, they were good. They did get a lot of sacks. I think a lot of that did come with linebackers. And that's part of the credit to that defensive line is they did a good job of creating havoc in when they were like kind of opening up holes, frankly, for what those linebackers could do. So they did a good job with that. I think what you're looking for to see this unit take a big jump and maybe improve this overall defense is to be able to win more consistently with 4. Because, again, you kind of saw their ability to collapse pockets and be disruptive, but I didn't think you saw a ton of sacks from those defensive linemen just straight beating the guy in front of them. That's kind of the step I'm looking for. And, again, you look at a guy like Shamar Stewart. He's getting there. It feels like it felt like really good in that bowl game, but he's a guy you're looking for. Shamar Turner was really good last year. But that's the essence of what I think you're looking for to get better. It's just that ability to win one-on-one.
Yeah, when I go back and watch the film from 2023, that's probably the word I would use, havoc. Like a lot of chaos, a lot of blowing up plays, kind of just pocket disruptors. And then you have guys like Edrin Cooper just coming up and kind of cleaning up. I'm kind of with you. My take, and I would love to hear Texas A&M fans and kind of their take on this. When I go back and watch some of that 2023 film, I feel like they're putting a lot of the responsibility on the linebackers to come up and make some of those plays where a lot of 3-man fronts that is kind of benefiting guys like Edrin Cooper and Torian York to kind of fire in and make some of those negative plays. I look at this defense and where the talent is. And we're going to get into the personnel, and I think a loaded defensive line. I would like to see Texas A&M and the staff kind of put the responsibility on this front defensive line to go out and get after the quarterback. It feels like at times they were relying on a lot of blitzes and pressure to get after the quarterback, and I think at times it maybe hurt the secondary. And obviously with the secondary improving, that's going to be a massive step in the right direction for this defense as a whole. But if you can rely on your front 4 to win a little bit more, which I certainly think they're capable of doing, I think that's going to mean massive things for this Texas A&M defense heading into 2024.
And that's the challenge they go to adopt. And frankly, you look at some of the transfers as we get into the personnel. I think you did add a couple guys who really were awesome in their one-on-one opportunities. I mean, Nick Skirton especially. I know Cassius Howell's a guy you like, but I do think they brought in, again, in conjunction with some of the guys they already had that we mentioned, they have more guys who I think can win those one-on-ones and be a little more consistent. And I'm kind of with you again. It's good to be able to send pressure at times, but it did feel at times way too reliant on it, and that does affect how your back end plays. And if they can be better, and this is a talented group, they should be able to do it. I think that'll just help the defense overall.
And you look at like some of the numbers you mentioned, pass rush win rate. I mean, Shamar Turner with the 13% win rate that led the team from the defensive line position, and that's a solid number. I think there's still some meat left on the bone. Right. And you take a look at some of the personnel. And I think what excites me the most is a lot of these guys are going into year 2 or year 3 or year 4. They're young guys. They're not the super seniors going from year 5 to year 6, right? There's some meat left on the bone, right? Shamar Turner, you want to see him continue to get better. You look at a guy like Shamar Stewart and Dill, if you were to ask me who is going to be the guy 12 months from now, when we're recapping this Texas A&M defensive line from the 2024 year, you were to ask me, who do I think is going to be the guy? I think Shamar Stewart, because you look at that film and you go back to the Oklahoma State game in that bowl game, he's just kind of different. Like the power that he has in his hands, the athleticism to test tackles around the edge, that stuff is rare. There was a reason he was a 5-star. I think year 2, especially at the end of the year, you saw him put it together. Man, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, 2 guys that I expect to take steps in the right direction. And then, Dill, I know you like Nick Skirton, so I'll let you have a chance to cook on Nick Skirton a little bit.
You talk a guy who was ultra productive on a defense that it wasn't necessarily easy to be ultra productive because he was the guy. I mean, Nick Skirton on Purdue, it was like kind of better by a wide margin than anyone else, and ultra productive. And that's, again, kind of what I think you're looking for. You need defensive linemen to have more sacks. I think you want somebody to have 10 plus. You want a couple other guys to be in that 5+ range as well. And that's what you're looking for with a guy like Nick Skirton, because, again, dominated at Purdue, plays that kind of similar game where he can play on the inside, play on the outside, and rush from either spot, which I think is the real fun, kind of intriguing part of what this A&M can do. Is because you talk about Shamar Stewart and Shamar Turner, very similar guys. DJ Hicks, he's kind of got some ability to work across the line of scrimmage to an extent as well. So you're just looking at a defensive line, including a Nick Skirton, that I think you have a lot of versatility. I think you should be able to, again, do what they do best and create a lot of havoc from those positions and run some games and just be disruptive. But that, again, I think he pairs really well with what they are.
You said versatility. I had havoc and versatility in my notes in terms of what Texas A&M did a really good job of in 2023 and kind of what you expect to do a good job of in 2024. You're moving these guys all along the line of scrimmage. And Dill, you said you want a guy that can win his one-on-ones. When you're one-on-one with the tackle and it's 3rd and long, can you go make it happen? I mean, Nick Skirton did that consistently, had a 21% pass rush win rate. As Michigan fans, we had a pretty damn good offensive line. I mean, Purdue, Nick Skirton was a handful for a lot of Big Ten offensive linemen throughout that 2023 year. He's a guy that 28 quarterback hurries, also a hammer in the run game, 10+ sacks. You kind of inject him into an already very good edge rushing group. I think you're excited about it. And Dill, the last guy I want to touch on before we move to the inside, I actually got 2 guys that I want to touch on real quick. One, Cassius Howell. The one question you have is making that jump from the MAC, from the group of 5 to the SEC. Another guy that one-on-one, 3rd and long, pinning your ears back, get after the quarterback. That's Cassius Howell, and it's a little bit of a different brand, right? Guys like Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, Nick Skirton, all kind of heavy-handed, want to go speed the power. Cassius Howell is going to be able to test a lot of tackles with that burst and bend around the edge. A 22.9% pass rush win rate. I don't care if that's at the high school level or the group of 5 level, Division III level. That's a phenomenal number. 10+ sacks, a ton of quarterback hurries. I think he comes in and is a difference maker for Texas A&M. And the last guy I'll shout out, Scooby Williams. And coming in as an off-ball linebacker from Florida, Dill, he should be playing edge. And if Texas A&M wants maybe a little bit more juice, adding a little bit more depth and rotation to that group, Jay Bateman took Scooby Williams for a reason. I don't think he was great at Florida in 2023. I also think he was playing out of position. He's a name that I'm at least monitoring in terms of what they use and how they use them in spring practice heading into fall camp in the 2024 season.
I mean, you want one more name that I think we didn't get to see a ton of until that bowl game, but Rylan Kennedy, the true freshman from last year.
Yeah.
I think, again, we talk about broadening that skill set out a little bit. You got the Skirtons, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, all 3, like, as you mentioned, big physical, want to kind of go through you kind of players. Rylan Kennedy, again, kind of what you mentioned with Cassius Howell, feels like he can win a little different, where he's a little smoother, he's a little more flexible. And again, I don't think you got to see a ton of them, but I saw enough in that bowl game where I was like, well, I'm kind of interested to see what he can do this year, because you did see a little bit of a unique athlete. And again, a guy who I think complements what they do the rest of the
That's what excites me so much about this group heading into 2024 is I think there's so much young talent on this team that you expect to get better. And again, going back to that conversation along the line of scrimmage, year 2, year 3, that's where you expect those jumps. And a lot of these players are going into year 2 and year 3. And a perfect segue to talk about the inside of this defensive line, where you got a guy like DJ Hicks, who I mean, he's different, right? The size, the explosiveness, the power in his hands, it flashed during his first year in college football. I don't think it was as consistent as you want. If DJ Hicks can kind of take those flashes, make them on a more consistent basis, you're looking at a true game wrecker from the inside of that Texas
A&M. See how strong his hand, like he is with his hands when he gets them on
shocks
guys. Physical. Like against Tennessee, I thought he had a couple of those moments where you're like, man, why don't I want to see this every play? I want to see this more often. And again, I think you're still working on him with being a little more explosive with his first step. Sometimes it feels like he gets off a little slow, and then that just kind of sets you up in a bad way. But again, you've seen enough. Only a true freshman, Elko staff coming in, maybe being able to do a better job developing their guys. He's another guy you're kind of looking at. And then obviously another one that I think people are way sleeping on because they don't watch bowl games anymore is Brownlow Dindy. I mean,
yeah,
I was like, man, why didn't we see this guy all year? He was beating guys one-on-one. He was tough. He's not the biggest defensive tackle I've ever seen, but he grinds it out in the middle. He doesn't get pushed around. And again, another guy who feels like he's maybe got a little more juice to him that can win one-on-one on the inside.
I agree. That's kind of, it epitomizes like the young talent that you're excited about taking that step on the inside with Hicks and Brownlaw Dindy. You throw in a guy like Regis. I am interested to see if Texas A&M maybe goes out and grabs one more big body on the inside. And I think it depends on what Mike Elko wants to do and kind of where you see these defensive line moving. Because again, a guy like Nick Skirton can certainly kick on the inside and play kind of that 3-tech position. At the end of the day, it's a ton of talent, a ton of versatility, and a ton of athleticism. And I think Mike Elko, as a defensive mastermind, is looking at this front seven. I'll include front seven. We'll talk about linebackers in another episode. But, hey, we can do a lot of different things to really create a lot of negative plays in this defense heading into that 2024 year. Cannot wait to see what Mike Elko does with what I think is one of the more talented front sevens that you see in the country. We'll end it on that. Next week, we have the offensive skill position coming up. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.